basically, that's a testimonial, without actually writing what somebody said.
Because pictures speak louder than words.
Exactly, exactly. And what we did also, we used this when we sent the invitation to the third saloon, and it was like a double purpose. The first purpose is testimonial. The second purpose is that, I mean, we're trying to keep you to your word. You all said you would come, right?
Come.
It also shows the community. So when we say community, people wouldn't be like, you're just saying that, you're using keywords, because it's real. And that's what I'm very passionate about, and I'm as frustrated as Jessica when people misuse it, or they lie, or they mask it, or all this. It's just knowing how to use what's really there to its full potential, and how to really have it spread to all of the community and all of your audience.
I have a question.
Yes.
Like, do you think it's really easy to lie on social media?
Yes.
Of course. But I think it's also really easy to be exposed.
Yeah, exactly. It's short-lived usually. And we were going to have a talk about that in TEDxBeirut. The speaker didn't have a lot of time to.
I have a question.
Yes.
Now that I see this a little bit more, and I've seen the ones before. And the question is, because of what you're saying, is that the audience that I see here is really very young. They're the youth.
Students.
They are youth, not 40s and 50s.
In this
Those, what I'm seeing,
yeah.
right?
And that's
And then UB, right?
yeah, this is UB and AU. Yeah.
Okay.
And that's why during the third one we try to reach the older audience. I'll get to that.
Oh, you were okay.
I'll
Because
get to that.
because also I'm wondering if these kind of triggers
Yeah,
are also for are age related.
they definitely are.
Yeah.
Definitely are.
So the young will want action. They want to go. They want straight. They want And I'm just wondering about the age groups.
Yeah. And in a bit, I'll give you examples of how we targeted an older age group using other keywords and triggers and all this. And it worked. What do I have next?
No.
It's the same slide. Let me figure out what I wanted to say. Sorry? Of course. Actually, a lot of people repeated those same keywords in different
He's
ways.
famous now.
Yes, he is. That's actually him, believe it or not. And it was by total coincidence. When I put it, I didn't even know that was him. And I was looking around, these people look the same. Okay, so I already covered this. Usually in public speaking, when you put a slide and you're talking, people can't really focus on what you're saying because pictures speak louder than words. So I'll give you a minute to get undistracted while I figure out what I'm going to say.
Was it a no question?
Yes, that's no way.
Can you briefly tell us what it's about? Because from here, with no glasses,
The note?
I can't read.
Yeah, it's okay. You don't have to read the content. It's about other things which I'm figuring out still. Okay, so I'll put it there because we're going to get to it in a while. Maybe this is better. Okay. So I think what I'm going to try to do next is to now get to actually the writing part. Now that we've covered everything that comes before and around the writing. And I'm going to, I think, cover a bit how to structure whatever it is that you want to write, how to structure the message. What are different forms of structures that work better than others? What are forms of structure that allows you to hook an audience and keep them hooked? And after that, we're going to go into the details of that, the details of the writing, the actual words, the number of words, the number of paragraphs, and all of these. Okay. So there are basically a lot of ways to approach the same thing. Some people use connect, convey, convince. So the first step is to connect with the audience. Because if you don't connect, no matter what you say, they're daydreaming about a beach in Hawaii. Right? After connecting, you convey your message. You convey what it is that you want to say. Right? And now that they understand it, they don't necessarily have to be convinced by it. And the last step is to actually convince them. Another way to say the same thing, I mean, because I'm saying all these because when I actually try to study something, I don't study it from one source. I take a lot of sources, a lot of contradicting sources, a lot of authors or who say different things around the same subject. And then I take a bird's eye view and I try to see what's the actual structure or what's the actual infrastructure that is holding everything together. And I'm saying all these because they all mean the same thing. And so another way to say connect, convey, convince is basically has to do with associations. So when you start by creating the right associations, you connect with someone, right? If I came here and I told you, in the printing press, you have to actually use 4 plates. Each plate needs to be one color, CMYK, and it has a specific resolution, which is either 150 LPI or 175 LPI. 5 minutes after that, you're going to be falling asleep, except Jumana and Hanan. Okay, because they can associate with that. So when I say printing press, she can associate with that. It means something to her. She has experienced it in different ways, while most of you haven't. Right? You have.
And this sounds like another lecture when we talk about the printing press for those who are not familiar with it. So.
Right, right. And so connect, convey, convince, associations is connecting. And so when you choose your examples, when you choose your words, you choose those that your audience not know about, because knowing is totally different than having experienced. Right? And so choose the examples that your audience has experienced, right? To create the right associations to connect. Convey is basically the context, not just the message. I can come and tell you something out of nowhere, but without really setting the grounds for that message, I wouldn't be able to deliver the message. I wouldn't be able to convey it. And this is, I don't know if you have a bit of time, I might cover it later on. I was sitting with one of our speakers, and we were coaching him. And last week, we were sitting in a round circle, and he started thinking out loud, brainstorming out loud. And 5 minutes or 15 minutes later, he actually got a realization. And everybody was with him, everybody understood that realization, everybody understood what he was trying to say. The week after, a new group was sitting in that round circle. And he just went there and he stated the realization, exactly as he realized it the week before. And the only people who understood were the 2 people who were from the week before. And that's why covering the context before you actually get to what it is that you want to say helps you convey the message better. And this is also contextual to your audience. So you have to know a bit who you're talking to.
You have to know a lot who you're talking to, right?
Right.
I emphasize this all the time, because if you don't, and you're talking about making associations with people, and if you don't really have a picture in your mind of who it is that you're trying to reach, with mass media you can get away with it. With social media, I really don't think you can.
Of course.
I have to picture William to think about A, how I'm going to write something for TEDxBeirut, or B, who I'm actually talking to. Or I have to picture who that person is, and not just think of them as business people or students or something like that. Because that's how you say, oh, we probably have this in common, or this association will resonate with them.
Right. And basically the fail-proof method of really understanding your audience is to write to yourself, because you probably understand yourself a lot more than other audiences. And that's why, for example, when I do the writing for TEDxBeirut, I'm writing for myself because I belong within TEDxBeirut and I understand what TEDxBeirut is and all this because I'm part of it. And so I write to myself because I am the audience. When I write my notes, I don't write them for the people out there. I don't have a certain person in mind because they're my notes. My notes, in a way, are written for me. All I do is publish them to the world. And what that actually does is it attracts the audience that I'm part of without knowing the individual members. Right? And that's why those who like them and read them can understand all the associations. Those who don't are not me, not my audience. Seth Godin, does everyone know who Seth Godin is? Okay, so for those who don't, he's a best-selling author. He's written, I think, 14 books so far, all of them on the best-selling author list. He's a very powerful marketeer, and at the same time, he's a good marketeer, if there's such a thing. Or he seems to be, at least, on the outside. And he wrote a small blog post. He said, we actually wave to ourselves. And he gave the example that one day he was actually on his, what do you call them, those tricycles? It's a bicycle with 3 wheels for adults.
For adults?
For adults.
Okay.
And so he was riding it, and he was like in his full sports attire, all this. And then he sees somebody on a bicycle, on a tricycle for adults, and that's like really rare. And he waves at him, and the other person waves back. When you're wearing something unique and you see somebody and he's wearing the same thing or she's wearing the same thing, you look at each other and you connect. And all he said is you're basically just waving to yourself. Right? So write to yourself, basically. When I work for customers, I spend a lot of time being one of them, in a way, to be able to understand their businesses and their customers and all this. I sit hours and hours and hours with them, with their parents, with their friends, to really understand their culture before I actually do start writing, because I'm not one of them, and I want to be one of them before I start writing. The last one is convince, is basically all about objections, right? When I say something, when I make a statement, the first thing that most people do is they compare it to what they already know. If it matches, they nod. If it doesn't match, they might not shake their heads, but they immediately start finding ways to object. And usually the answer is yes, but. So we'll get to the word but in a moment. But the answer is usually yes, but. So when you want to convince someone, you have to know what all his objections are. And usually, no matter how trivial the subject is, there's at least 6 objections. And that's not like a calculated guess. There has been a lot of studies, and it has been proven to be a fairly accurate average. Even if I give you 2 cups of coffee, and they might be like very similar, and I tell you to choose one, in a fraction of a second your head will go through at least 6 objections for you to make your choice, even if it's just a cup of coffee. Maybe the smell, maybe which one has more coffee in it, which one's hotter, if you like the cup or not, etc. The problem is, if you don't know the audience and you don't understand them, you wouldn't know what the objections are. And this brings us back to trying to be part of your audience, to belong to your audience, to be able to write about them. And that's why a lot of producers or directors, when they do their independent productions, they actually go and live within the community that they're documenting. Because otherwise, how can they convey anything to the outside world? How can they convey the outside world to that community?